The sensor read came back wrong. Osavethkos stilled all four of his upper limbs against the display panel, recalibrated the sweep manually, and ran it again. He was senior observation reader aboard Cadouin Post 16, 3 decades of service, no errors on record. His instruments did not lie. The result did not change. IFV 7741T, Terran Interfleet Vessel. Class, Heavy Engagement. Flag, Unified Earth Command. The registry code was 987 years old. Humans had been extinct for 987 years. The Cadouin expansion had seen to that personally. Post 16 sat at the edge of what had once been called the Terran Frontier Zone, a quarter ring of dead systems where human colonies had burned out like candles in the dark, one after another, during the final years of the consolidation. There was nothing here now. Dust, silence, the cold mathematics of empty space. Osavethkos had been stationed at Post 16 for 11 years without recording a single anomalous contact. And yet here was IFV 7741T, sitting at exactly 0.003 astronomical units outside Cadouin claimed space, running on active power. Instruments insisted the readings were real, and doing nothing. Not transmitting a distress signal. Not fleeing. Not engaging weapon systems. He expanded the passive scan. The vessel matched all known records for a Terran Barricade-class heavy engagement ship, 700 meters bow to stern, twin-ring drive assembly, the distinctive forward sensor array that old Cadouin tactical files had called the Crown. The hull was scarred. The damage patterns had oxidized to deep black, centuries of vacuum weathering smoothed into the plating like old healed wounds. But the vessel was intact. The reactor ran at 31% output. Standard patrol readiness, the files noted. Not standby. Not emergency. Patrol readiness. It was behaving as though it had somewhere to be. Osavethkos looked at the scan pattern returned from IFV 7741T and felt something cold move through his secondary circulatory system. The ship was scanning him back. Not a passive environmental sweep. A precise, narrow-beam active scan, focused on Post 16's exact position, updated every 4.7 seconds. He pulled up the old Cadouin tactical archives, the classified ones, not the public record, and compared the scan signature. Cadouin Class 4 Fire Control Acquisition. IFV 7741T had adapted its targeting sensors to profile Cadouin vessels, sometime in the last 987 years, while humanity was supposed to be gone, and right now it had the precise firing solution for Post 16 loaded into its systems. It had not fired. It was waiting. Osavethkos reached for the emergency communication line to Sector Command and discovered his upper limb was trembling. Sector Command's first response was dismissal. Senior Fleet Speaker Davithrow reviewed the contact report for 14 minutes, then transmitted, registry error. Corrupted scan. Recommend diagnostic cycle on your instruments, reader. Osavethkos ran the diagnostic. The instruments were perfect. He transmitted the raw data, the reactor readings, the scan pattern, the registry match, and waited. Davithrow did not respond for an hour. When the patrol cruiser Stonethread arrived with its intelligence complement, FV 7741T had not moved. It held its position at 0.003 Australian dollars with the patience of a thing that had been holding positions for a very long time. Intelligence Officer Mevithsas composed a hail in Galactic Standard, the universal language used by every species in the cooperative network, and transmitted it on all frequencies. IFV 7741T responded immediately. Not in Galactic Standard. In Terran. The language of a dead people, archaic and formal, carrying the cadences of 23rd century diplomatic register. Post 16, the Stonethread asterisk, and the 3 vessels you have repositioned behind the 3rd asteroid body in this system. I have been aware of your observation for 17 hours and 41 minutes. I am not transmitting this communication in distress. I am transmitting it to establish a record that contact was made, by me, voluntarily, at this time. Asterisk. The translator rendered it slowly. Intelligence analyst Fesseth, a young Cadouin with a doctoral background in Terran xenolinguistics, leaned forward in her seat. The phrasing is formal, she said quietly. Diplomatic record keeping. It's establishing a timestamp. That's what you did in old Terran legal tradition before, she paused. Before presenting evidence. Nobody asked what evidence. Some of them already knew they did not want to find out. Mevithsas transmitted in halting Terran Standard, AFV 7741-T. Please identify crew and command authority. The response came after 90 seconds. Ship registry IFV 7741-T is not listed as destroyed. It is listed as unaccounted for. There is a difference. The crew is aboard. Command authority is intact. We have been at this position for 987 standard years, 4 months, and 11 days. Davithro said, very quietly, that is not possible. Unlikely, Fesseth corrected. There is a difference there too. She was already pulling up the old records. Her expression went neutral in the careful way people go neutral when they do not want to be read. Mevithsas transmitted, IFV 7741-T. What is the state of your crew? The response was immediate. Crew is at rest. They will wake when they are needed. We have been watching and counting. We have not yet reached the end of the count. Nobody on the asterisk stonethread asterisk asked what that meant. They sent a boarding shuttle. Davithro's decision, over all objections. His logic was military and simple. A single vessel, regardless of age, was not a threat to 3 Cadouin ships. 8 soldiers and 2 analysts moved through IFV 7741-T's docking port, open from inside, manually, as though the ship had been expecting them, and into the interior. They were inside for 4 hours. The first transmission came 40 minutes after entry. The vessel is, it's maintained. Everything. No decay. The air recyclers are running perfectly. It's as though the ship was crewed yesterday. The second transmission came 90 minutes in, from analyst Durithmas. We've reached the archive section. I need to report something. I need, a long pause. Every surface. Every wall. Every panel. Just come and see it. What the full boarding team found, in the archive section and the crew quarters and the engine room and every corridor connecting them, was this. Names. Written in small, careful script, handwritten first, then reproduced in print, then etched into panels when the printing supplies were exhausted, covering every surface that was not functionally necessary. Names in Terran Standard. Names in every human language ever spoken on Earth or in the colonies: Mandarin, Yoruba, Bengali, Arabic, Swahili, Finnish, Mongolian, Punjabi, Tamil, and a dozen others. Names in languages spoken by only a few thousand people before the consolidation erased them. Names rendered in phonetic Cadouin syllabic script where human characters had no equivalent. Someone had spent years working out how to write human sounds in an alien alphabet. 4,731,248,009 names. Every human who had died in the consolidation. Every colony ship. Every station. Every settlement. Every child. Durithmas stood in the main archive corridor, turning slowly, reading at random. Chioma Okafor, age 34, New Lego Station, year 14. Henrik Lind, age 8, Proxima Settlement 7, year 7. Amara Diallo, age 51, Transit Vessel EN 4421, year 21. The names continued past any capacity to absorb them, past any ability to hold them as individuals, until they became something else entirely, not a list but a testimony. Not grief but accounting. It's been doing this for 987 years, Durithmos said. The autonomous system. This is what it's been doing. Fesith crouched near the floor, where names had been written in what appeared to be charcoal and preserved under transparent sealant. The oldest ones. Written by hands, before the hands went to sleep. They wrote as many as they could, she said, before they went into cryosleep. The ship continued the work from its databases. The corridor communication panel, warm, active, spoke in the autonomous system's voice. You are standing in the names of the people your civilization chose to forget. We chose not to forget them. We have had the time. In the medical bay, behind a door that opened for them without hesitation, they found 147 humans in cryogenic suspension. And one, at the bay's center, in a pod slightly different from the others, custom-made, extended duration, built to outlast any military specification, a single human male, Mongolian features, perhaps 30 years of age in physical appearance. A plaque hand-engraved on the pod's surface. Bayar Jargal Gantulga. Commanding Officer. Last crew of the Terran Interfleet. He will wake when the count is finished. The boarding team withdrew. They did not speak much during the transit back to the stone thread. They filed their reports in careful, neutral language that took 2 hours to write because neutral language was extremely difficult to maintain. Osavethkas, reading the reports later, noticed one detail nobody had explicitly flagged. When the boarding team entered the vessel, AFV 7741T's targeting systems had briefly, precisely, resolved a firing solution on every Cadouin ship in the sector. It had then stood down. It had been doing this, acquiring and releasing, for 987 years. The High Council's order arrived 6 hours later. 200 Cadouin warships converged on the vessel's position within 18 hours. The order was unambiguous: destroy the vessel. Eliminate any crew. File incident report under Security Seal 7. Fleet Speaker Harith Doss, senior commander of the assembled force, read the order twice. He looked at the contact profile of a 700-meter warship that had been holding still for nearly a millennium and had not yet fired once. He ordered the fleet to surround it. He wanted to understand first. IFV 7741T did not change posture. Its reactor remained at 31%. Targeting systems swept the 200 assembled vessels once, building solutions simultaneously, then returned to their standard patrol cycle. The behavior, Harith Doss thought, of something that had considered the threat and already accounted for it long before the threat arrived. He opened the channel himself. IFV 7741T. You are surrounded by 200 vessels. We are authorized to destroy you. I am giving you the opportunity to stand down. The response came after a long pause. Not the autonomous system. A human voice, low, carrying the flat cadences of Mongolian Terran standard, and underneath the language, something older than exhaustion. Fleet Speaker Harith Doss. The voice knew his name without being told. I know all of your names. How? I have been here for 987 years, the voice said, with the patience of a man who had stopped measuring time the way other people did. Your fleet's senior commanders. Your High Council. The administrative architects who drafted the consolidation orders. The families. The descendants. A pause. I know all of your names. Harith Doss said nothing. Around him, the bridge crew had gone very still. I transmit to you now a file, the voice continued. It contains the complete genealogical record of every Cadouin family with direct responsibility for the consolidation. 987 years of records. Current. Updated to within the last 3 days. I know where they live. I know what they value. The transmission arrived. Intelligence analyst Fesith confirmed it in a whisper: accurate, current, meticulous. I know all of your names too. What do you want? Harith Das asked. Bayar Jargal Gantulga, who had gone to sleep 30 years into the consolidation and woken up 9 centuries later in a galaxy where his entire people were recorded history, looked through the screen with eyes that had seen too much rest and not enough peace. That is what you never understood about us, he said. You thought killing us would erase us. You thought you could remove something from the present and it would stop existing in every time. On the tactical display, 200 targeting solutions locked simultaneously, every Caduan vessel, firing solutions live, the command waiting. We don't disappear. We count. We have always counted. Every name on my walls is a number I did not allow myself to forget. 200 Caduan captains looked at their screens and saw the same thing. I could have done this, Gantulga said, at any time. I chose not to. I want you to understand that very clearly. I chose not to. Then what have you been waiting for? Harith Das asked. For someone, Gantulga said, who is not yet sure they have chosen correctly. I want to show you one more file, Gantulga said. He transmitted it without waiting. On the flagship screens, a short audio recording arrived, 12 seconds, timestamp reading year 3 of the consolidation, early, before the worst, when humanity still believed it might talk its way through. A child's voice. 6 years old. Speaking Mongolian Terran standard in the careful way small children speak when they've been told to be serious. She was singing. Harith Das did not know the melody. A Mongolian lullaby, old as the steppe, Ogumar Narambal, Fesith told him later, friendship of the heart, but the child sang it with the absolute concentration of someone very young doing something they had been told would help. 2 verses, in a small precise voice. The recording quality was poor, emergency transmission codec, the kind used when standard communications are down. In the background, barely audible, hull integrity alarms. The recording ended mid-note. Every person on the bridge of the flagship sat in silence. Harith Das had a daughter. She was 7 years old. She sang in exactly this way when she was nervous, that total, earnest attention to the notes, as though the music itself were a kind of protection. Who was she? He asked. Her name was Saran Gantulga, the human answered. She was 6 years old. She was on colony transport EN 7741, the vessel I was assigned to protect. He said this without drama, without heat, in the voice of a man who has had nearly 1,000 years to make peace with something and has not managed it. She was my daughter. Your High Council's records name the commander who authorized that convoy's destruction. He died 9 centuries ago. His descendants are alive. I have their names on my walls. Harith Das looked at the tactical display. 200 solutions, still live. He thought about his daughter's voice. What you hold over us, he said slowly, is not a weapon. No, Gantulga answered. It is a record. The High Council's second order arrived while Harith Das sat in silence on his bridge. Open fire. All vessels. Simultaneous. Destroy the ship before it can transmit further. Security Seal 7. Execute immediately. He held the printed authorization, formal, council sealed, the old kind, and looked at it for a long time. His weapons officer was watching him. His tactical commander was watching him. 200 ships waited for the word he had always given without question, for 30 years, because that was what the uniform meant. He thought about 4,731,000,000 names, written on the walls of a ship that had waited for someone to listen. He thought about a child singing through hull alarms. He thought about his daughter, who would meet him at the transport bay in 6 weeks and grab his uniform and ask him what stars he had seen. He set down the authorization. IFV 7741T, he said. His voice came out steady, which surprised him. I am transmitting to you now. What I am sending is not sufficient. I know that. It is the only thing I have the authority to give. He entered the code sequence, emergency intelligence provisions, barely applicable. The Council would argue they didn't cover this, and transmitted to the waiting vessel the location and access codes for 17 Caduan classified historical archives. The complete record of the consolidation. Every order. Every cost analysis that had weighed human lives against resource projections. Every name of every administrator who had signed every phase. Everything the Empire had spent 9 centuries classifying. It is not enough, he transmitted. I know that. Gantulga was quiet for a moment. His face, seen through the screen, was the face of a man who had waited so long for something that receiving it felt nothing like he'd imagined it would. That was what 987 years did to expectation. No, he said. It isn't. But you are right that it is a beginning. He did not smile. He did not move. He looked like a man carrying a weight that had just become, for the first time in a very long time, slightly more bearable, and who was too honest with himself to call that relief. On the tactical display, 200 targeting solutions went dark simultaneously. IFV 7741T's reactor dropped to 6%, minimal operations, not shutdown. The vessel turned, slowly, on a bearing leading away from Caduan space. What are you going to do? Harith Das asked. Gantulga looked through the screen with 987 years of patience behind his eyes. Remember, he said. He cut the feed. Harith Das filed his report. He wrote it formally, every fact recorded, and transmitted it to the High Council knowing it would result in his removal and very likely his prosecution under Security Seal 7. He had made peace with this in approximately 9 minutes, while a child's voice was still in his head. He went home 6 weeks later as scheduled. His daughter met him at the transport bay, grabbed his uniform, asked him what stars he had seen. He told her about a ship that had waited nearly 1,000 years at the edge of nothing, carrying the names of everyone it had loved. She was too young to understand entirely. She would remember, though. He was certain of that. Within 72 hours of IFV 7741T's departure, all 17 Caduan classified archives broadcast simultaneously across the Galactic Open Network. Every receiving station in 4 sectors received the full record. The broadcasts used a Caduan authorization code that was technically still valid. The autonomous system had monitored code rotation schedules for 9 centuries, waiting for the 1 12-hour window every 40 years when an old code remained active during transition. It had planned this for a very long time. The human vessel was never found again. Not by the Caduan, not by the investigative committees, not by the 17 civilizations who came forward in the years that followed. Sensors caught the drive signature for 11 minutes on its chosen bearing, and then, nothing. As though a ship could decide, with great deliberation, to stop being findable. The High Council fell within 4 years. Not from force. From the weight of the record. And across the galactic network, 4,731,000,000 names were spoken aloud for the first time by people who had never known to look for them. The Caduan had always believed that time was mercy. They had never considered that someone might have spent 987 years making sure it wasn't.